responding to is why BSL is unnecessary to pit bulls. My opponent's proof was not sufficient in proving her claim because her secondary claims weren't really focused on pit bulls. It was more on like the general idea of everything. So before I go into the inconsistencies that I found, I would like to refresh on what the definition of BSL is. Breed-specific legislation is the law that bans or restricts certain types of dogs based on their appearance, usually because they are perceived as dangerous breeds or types of dogs. Her secondary claims were the first one: owners rather than breed are the source of the problem. Pit bull have traits that make them desirable companions, and BSL will fail to solve the problem. For her first response, my opponent does not provide enough evidence as to why the owners are the source of the problem. She claims that the owners are the ones in charge of the dogs. They guide the dogs and tell them what to do, and the dogs obey to make their opponents happy, to make their owners happy. My opponent provides no citation for this claim. She then talks about an article by the CDC which shows ways to encourage pet owners to reduce aggression in dogs. She didn't go into how the owners are exactly the major problem. This lack of information weakens her claim. From the research that I did, I found that not all owners are the same. According to the American Pit Bull Foundation, any dog from any breed can be aggressive. It just matters how they're treated. Rachel Casey, a researcher at the University of Bristol School of Veterinary Sciences, sent out 15,000 questionnaires to dog owners, and about 4,000 people sent back. Analyzing their responses, Katie found that certain traits of an owner said more about a dog's aggression than the dog's breed. These data suggest that although general characteristics of dogs and owners may be a factor at population level, it would be inappropriate to make assumptions about an individual's animal's risk of aggression to people based on characteristics such as breed. And then for her second claim, the advocate claims that pit bull have traits that make them desirable companions. She talks about a boy named Johnny who has autism, and then his parents decided to adopt a dog, but nowhere does she say what type of dog it was, and there was no story like citation to be able to figure out what the dog was. And then after his parents adopt the dog, he shows affection towards his family. None of the information that she provides is shown to be unique in pit bulls. Other dogs can have the same benefits. According to Pets World Center, traits make dogs ideally suited to be human companions. They develop specific attachment for individuals and remain near or in physical contact with their owners as if attached by an invisible cord. In a study of 259 Swedish dog owners, 83% of questioned agreed with the statement, "My dogs give me the opportunity of talking with other people," and 79% agreed with the statement, "The dog makes friends for me." For her last claim, even though her claim was correct, my opponent has a lack of reliable evidence as to why BSL will fail to solve the problem. It's mostly just assumptions. She claims that banning dog breeds isn't the answer because there's always going to be another substitution. If pit bulls are banned, people will pick another dog to call dangerous. From the research that I found, extensive studies of the effectiveness of BSL in reducing the numbers of persons harmed by dog attacks were done in Spain and Great Britain. Both studies concluded that their dangerous animal attacks, which included pit bull bans, had no effect at all on stopping dog attacks. The Spanish study further found that the breeds most responsible for the bites before the ban were those breeds not covered by it, primarily German Shepherds and mixed breeds. And according to the Bickle Foundation, BSL is costly to taxpayers and city governments. It does not make irresponsible dog owners accountable, but punishes good dog owners, and not a single canine welfare organization supports BSL. Thank you.
Well, you kind of challenge the lack of relevance and proof to the advocate's arguments, and you preview what the supporting structure of the advocate's arguments are. So you set things up pretty well, and then you proceed to try to prove their arguments better than they did. I don't understand the way you went about doing this. Your evidence shows, for instance, that on that first point, you've got better evidence than she had that it's the owner that has an effect on the dog. That's exactly what your claim says. On the third point, you've got evidence that says breed-specific legislation doesn't work. That's her claim. And you've got evidence that says that it doesn't work. You've got evidence that says no organization believes that we need to have these things. So in essence, what your way of responding to the argument is by proving her point, and that is not a refutation. So I think that you've misunderstood the nature of what it is you're supposed to be doing on these particular points. There are plenty of advocates of breed-specific legislation who would provide you with a variety of evidence to suggest that there is, in fact, a necessity for doing this kind of thing. But apparently you didn't find any of that information, and instead you just found the information that the advocate lacked, and that's, misses the point. It's, as I said before, it's a little bit like the defense attorney saying, well, here's the blood evidence and the fingerprint evidence that the prosecutor didn't present. Now you can convict my client. That's not what your responsibility is. It's not a critique, it's a refutation. And even if as a critique, it's a little bit problematic because you don't really, when you say that the advocate doesn't provide enough reason, and in fact that the secondary points really aren't relevant to the issue, I'm going, okay, well that'll work. For example, that whole second point, that doesn't seem to have much to do with breed-specific legislation. At best, it's got something to do with whether or not pit bulls are dangerous. I did think that your argument here was pretty reasonable, that said the advocate's evidence doesn't say that Johnny's dog was a pit bull. There's no source for the story about Johnny on this particular thing. There's no reason that other dogs couldn't provide the same kind of response. Those are good arguments, So your stuff on the second point, that's pretty solid. But the first and the third points are like just a concession to the advocate, and so that works backwards. All right, thank you.